Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Capturing Your Love Show, where we talk about everything relationships, marriage, weddings, and so much more. Tonight we have on Matt and Jodi Boyer, who dive deep into the balance of relationships, the power of having traditional values, and how loyalty is essential. Let's dive right in. Matt, Jodi, thank you so much for joining us on the Capturing Your Love show. Why don't you introduce yourselves and tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. So my name's Jodi. I definitely think I get a plus for being a great wife. And I'm also a physician assistant working with hematology and oncology patients.
Awesome.
My name's Matt. Little fun fact is that I went to high school at a rival high school. My beautiful wife here. And basically my only hobby is being in the outdoors. That's what I spend most of my time doing.
Very cool. So we'll jump right in. This is about the impact of digital communication on relationships. How do you two think the rise of digital communication and social media has impacted the quality of relationships and dating culture today?
Well, I'd say it has some positive impacts in the fact that we went on our first date after he messaged me through Instagram, so I guess I can't knock it completely.
Remember what year that was?
It was 2019.
Nice.
Very end of 2019, December.
But I don't know. I guess it has its drawbacks, I feel like, too.
I would say, so speaking like super modern, being that we started dating at the end of 2019, and with the whole COVID thing going on, we were kind of new. We hadn't really dated for very long, but we could stay in very easy contact without actually seeing each other by messaging each other. So it was something that, for us, definitely, it made dating easier because it wasn't like we had a section apart because we couldn't communicate. I mean, we talked every day. Because we had that opportunity.
That's a huge pro then.
Right. Right. I mean, I would certainly say in our very specific situation, it was positive.
I agree.
At least in that.
But I would say in society as a whole, it definitely has negative impacts too.
How so?
I feel like there's always that next person you can get in touch with. There's always someone else you can chat with, or something catches your eye, and then things just start snowballing from there. And I feel like that's not something that was available before, and people were just true to who they were with because they focused on that. And I just feel like social media has just played such a role in that availableness.
Too many options almost.
Yeah, like it's like has to just do with today's culture. Like people are just never satisfied, and they're just on to the next thing. And I think that plays a role in that.
Well, I think for us too, I mean, I'm certainly on my phone more than Jodi is. So like if I feel like I need to contact her for something and she doesn't answer, it's super easy for me to send her like 8 to 10 messages like, "Hey, can you please answer the question?" So I think it strains.
That's a good point. Because what did people do back in the day? Like if I'm away and then I get a million text messages and a million phone calls, and we're like, "But I'm going to be home." I don't know. It's good to be in like contact, but it also there's like just to a point where it's just like so much. Like you just know where everybody is all the time. Like we don't do the location sharing thing.
No.
Awesome.
No.
We probably should because
he sets the alarms off when I'm not answering right away.
Yeah.
But I'm in company of somebody else. I'm just not on my phone, and I'm just with that person. I appreciate that he cares and cares enough to want to know where I am and what's going on. But the whole location thing, like we haven't done. Like we live together, but we also have our own separate lives, and I don't feel like we need to know constantly where everyone's like, oh, like where's Matt at right now? And just keep looking.
You can definitely put that down as like one of the cons. Well, I guess situationally is again there, but a con, like it's just so easy to, which I guess it is a form of communication, but you know where someone is all the time, and you can't, not that you need to get away with something, but like you're trying to surprise your significant other by going and getting them a gift, and it's like, oh, look where he's at right now, you know what he's doing.
I actually just had that experience recently. I was on a bachelorette trip for my cousin, and we were all sitting in the airport getting ready to go home, and like they were all looking to see, and like the one girl's like, oh, my significant other's at my favorite like soap shop, he must be getting me something. Like, this is ridiculous. And the other one's like, oh, he's over at the grocery store. I don't know, it was just, it's too much.
Yeah, I think that
don't need to know.
One
like,
step
there's
too far.
Trust is a big part of the relationship, and I just trust that he's just doing whatever he needs to do, and then we'll communicate when we need to. But so pros and cons.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, definitely pros and cons.
So along with that, challenges of dating culture today, 2024, 2023, in your view, what do you guys think is the most significant challenge that modern couples face today when they make an attempt to build a long-lasting relationship?
Well, I guess piggybacking off of what she had said, there is that availability where it's like, you know, I don't know if this is going to work, so you're seeking someone else out to maybe like replace that person, and it's so available to do that. You know, you don't even have to leave your home to do that now. You could just whip out Instagram, Twitter, whatever, TikTok, and like you right there it is. And you can message anybody you want to, and it's right in your hand. Whereas
right, and I think all those dating apps now, and like I have a lot of friends, not a lot, I have friends that are in the dating world right now, and it's just so hard to like gauge someone's like commitment and what they want. Like, it just seems those dating apps aren't for people trying to really find someone long term. And then even like the websites, like one of my friends is on the website, and still it's just super challenging. I don't know exactly how everything's going right now. It would make me nervous to be out there right now trying to figure it out, but it just seems so hard to find someone. And I just feel like a lot of that, like everyone goes to social media and apps and websites to try to find someone, and there's certainly success stories out there, and I don't knock that. But I like, people ask me all the time, like, how am I supposed to find someone? And honestly, I sit down and think about it, and like, I don't really know.
Yeah.
And so I think it gives you opportunity, but at the same time, trying to find someone and be committed to that person. And I think it's just challenging to try to gauge someone, and then you meet up with them, but they're also talking to these other people through all these different means, and I think it's really hard.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I also think people aren't as honest nowadays, so you add that in as a factor with it's just a bunch of people with ulterior motives on dating apps, and it doesn't make an atmosphere for like finding someone you're going to spend the rest of your life with. So like she said, I mean, it can work out.
Right, yeah, we definitely have people, that are now married because they met on Tinder or things like that. So it definitely has opportunities, but I just think it also has a lot of challenges. Yeah,
I definitely agree.
So it really depends on the individual.
And big time.
What kind of person the individual is, and perhaps if there is a larger sum of individuals who don't know what they want, or have extremely high expectations on what their perfect partner should be, then there's just this cycle of everyone cycling through everyone.
Right.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. It just goes back to the availability thing. Like, you found one person on a dating app, all you got to do is go back on it again, and you might find someone again. So you just keep, like you said, cycling. It's like, oh, well, I don't know. This person doesn't seem that interested, and I don't want to put in the effort for a second and third date. So maybe this next person, they'll be, they'll like me more after a first date. So you just keep going. It doesn't really make like an atmosphere for like trying to have an actual connection with somebody.
Right. And then so much of it is through texting and messaging, and it's really hard to read somebody like just by doing that. So I certainly people talk on the phone, but people don't talk on the phone like they used to, and I think that also makes it hard because you just can't get a really good feel by just communicating with someone that way. And so like when I text people or like send messages, I always put exclamation points because I want people to know like I'm happy. I'm not like just like being like mean or like just boring in it. But then some people can take that wrong, and it's hard to like come across as like who you are through that.
Yeah, I still can't understand her tone through a text message. So, as long as we've been together, and still sometimes she'll send me something and be like, "Am I getting yelled at?" Right, so that's another barrier too. You don't know. Someone can seem super genuine over text, but you're interpreting it a certain way, and then you meet them and they're not that way, and
right, that just is another challenge and hurdle to overcome through that.
There's a hilarious Key and Peele skit where they're texting each other and one guy's super chill, but the other guy is thinking he's like mad at him, and it's just the funny. I forget what the skit was called, but it's one of the funniest skits I've ever seen.
Yeah,
and I mean that is exactly what happens when you're texting.
Like my cousin's wife is the most loud, outgoing person ever that I've ever met, and like she'll send me a text. And I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, why? And I'm like, your text just seems so like flat. And she's like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what I should do. And I was like, I don't
Add exclamation marks.
Yeah.
Put an emoji.
Yeah, put an emoji like you're happy as you say it. I don't know.
What do you two think about if you talk about the increasing emphasis on being an individual and having individual personal growth? How do you two maintain a balance between developing as individuals and growing as a couple?
I think it's more important to develop yourself as an individual in general, but with that person along with you, supporting you through it. So you're doing it together, but it's still, each person has their own individual goals, and like relationships don't work unless each is like hyping the other one up. You know, like if you're not working towards a goal and your significant other like helping you get to that whatever you're trying to achieve, whether it's, you know, a job or a hobby or whatever, like if you're not doing it individually with the help, the relationship almost doesn't work. So it's kind of like it's the balance between the two, because obviously you're going to have goals together. That's the whole point of the relationship. But like, we don't have the same hobbies.
Right. That's what I was going to say. I think that's how like us specifically in that example work so well in this way, because he is very independent in his hunting and going away, and he does that. Now, granted, we share that in common, and like there will be times that we share that, but he goes away come September. He's away every weekend to go up to his cabin. And so that is his time to be on his own, do his own thing. And then I use those weekends to focus on things I like to do. And that has to do with me meeting up with more friends or family, or just being on my own. And I like to work on furniture and do those kinds of things. So I think that gives us that really good opportunity to be individualized and grow as individuals. And we're okay with being apart in that way. But we're also very okay being together and doing just like the most normal things. Like we go shopping, grocery shopping together, or just during the week just being around each other. I think we just do really, like, we really enjoy each other's company and are totally fine doing things together, but are also just very comfortable in being apart and having that separation for our own time.
Right. And like so our relationship is like eerily similar to my parents' relationship, where like, so when she talks about me going to the cabin, so it's a cabin that my dad and a bunch of his friends own, and they've had it for 40 years. So my dad did the same thing. Like when hunting season came around, or like they have a work detail in May, or if they wanted to go up fishing, whatever, like my mom was like, you go, like just go have fun, like do your own thing. And my dad was gone, not like, well, when we were kids, whatever, gone, but like he went to the cabin, he had his hunting, fishing time, and my mom stayed home and like hung out with her family, or like just, you know, did stuff around the house to like relax. Like it wasn't uncommon for them to spend time apart. But my parents also, when my dad is home, and like we're kind of the same way, they do everything together and they love it. So it's like kind of back to that, like they have their own things, And they both, like, my mom loves decorating. My dad doesn't. But, like, he supports her when she's, like, decorating the whole house, you know, putting up the
Just like
Christmas.
you support me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we do it together
Yeah, like
sometimes.
very eerily similar. But so, like, we have this separation between, like she said, we go grocery shopping together. I get drugged to Target with her. But we do everything together. And then she affords me the time that I can go and do what I want to do separate, and like it's okay. You know what I mean? It's not like she supports it. So like balance.
Yeah, right. That's what I was gonna say. It all just comes to that balance.
Yeah.
Was it always
That's
like
nice.
that, or did you have to learn the balance at the early stages?
I would say early on, like I was always okay with him going away. It was harder at first with him going away, but it just made it that much nicer when he came home. Like it was still like this exciting thing when he would come home. But yeah, certainly as we've gone along here now, he's like, I'm going away. I'm like, great. I was like, can't wait to see what I'm going to do this weekend. It's the only time I can keep the house clean while he's away. So it definitely was a learning process.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, like we were pretty good at doing that.
Well, and I know I certainly early was like, this is how I've always lived my life. And if it's going to change, it's going to be tough for me to do that. And she kind of just was like,
But it was a little bit for him too, because he would go away to the cabin, and then sometimes he would come home Saturday night instead of staying till Sunday. And his mom said something, and I was like, oh, it's different when you have something to come home to.
Well,
so
that's true. That is true.
yeah, so
It
it was
is
a little
true.
bit for both of us. Now
that is true.
he doesn't always come home early, but
So, there's your marriage, and then there's society and culture and their view of marriage. How do you two believe that your marriage differs from how people negatively view marriage in society today?
I would say we have a relatively traditional.
that's what I was going to say. I think we have really traditional roots. And I think we both have really strong parent relationships to look at in that way.
Yeah.
Both of you?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so my parents, well, my dad worked a lot when I was younger, but like still a very like unit of a team. So my dad didn't go away as much like his dad did. But certainly having both my parents there like through everything. And so I think that's a big part of what differs our relationship from the other. And it was one of those, like, we had those examples to look at and like talking about committing to marriage beforehand. And we both said like, that's something we're very serious about. Like that's something like when you commit, like that's it. Like there's no like just on a whim. Like we both felt that way. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know, I guess most people feel that way when they get married, but I don't know. I just feel like I really mean it. I don't know.
Well, and again, back to the whole thing where like my parents did everything together. So like when I saw like kind of what I thought was like the perfect marriage, I was like, well, I want something like that. So like I saw my parents like very traditional marriage and was like, well, that's what I want because they're happy and they have 2 kids that are happy. So like, and you know, grew up in a good household. So like to me, I saw that and was like, well, traditional marriage seems, you know, it seems like kind of the avenue.
Right. And I think, you know, as most relationships start, like there was certainly like just attraction between us, physical attraction, but I think both of us being from the same area, we're both from Berks County, and now we're going to be Berks County people forever. But just a lot of our values lining up in that way too. And just being those close homebody people. We have both of our families around, and that's something that's important to us. And I just think the traditional values is really what grounds us and makes us. It's just something that we can both like settle in on, and I feel like is like a very strong foundation for our marriage.
Well, the other one too that, and this was new because we got married in May, obviously. the one thing that we talked about, like when we were getting ready to get married, was the whole like joint bank account thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
when
how'd that go?
well, so we were both on the same page, like absolutely, because like now we also have our own bank accounts and do whatever with our own money, but we have an agreement that we put a certain amount of money aside, like that's our money for this and that and whatever, and like if one of us needs it out of there, it's fine. Like obviously we're going to discuss it, but when I talked to some of my friends, it was kind of just like, no, like it's your money, like you should have your money. Yeah,
Really?
and I think that's like a newer, more traditional is like marriage is about each other. Now, like more modern is like we talked about, it's two individuals together. So like I feel like now is more, I don't want to say like and just society as a whole, I don't want to say it's more of like a selfish type thing.
I think it's like more of a reserved thing. Like I feel like people are just like taking a step back and like being more reserved in the fact that a lot of marriages fail and you hear all this divorce and you hear all these things that happen. So I feel like people just, I don't know, don't like just meld in together as much. And it's more of like a, we'll be prepared just in case this doesn't work out kind of thing. And I think that kind of puts brakes and stops on the whole marriage developing and process through that.
Well, and so we just talked about my guilty pleasure of watching 90 Day Fiancé. On there, a lot of times you have people, so normally the person who is bringing someone over, they'll suggest maybe signing a prenuptial agreement. And a lot of times people don't like that. And like, it's funny just to see certain people's reactions to things like that, because like I never would have thought to sign a prenup, because like when you think about it, which I don't know, I would like to see a percentage on like the number of prenuptial agreements signed like per marriage, like throughout time, because I feel like it's more of a modern thing, because you're almost like kind of just planning on a divorce at that point. You know, like you're saying like, oh, well, I want to make sure that if you leave me, I have what was mine kind of thing, you know? And like, I get it. It's a protection thing, but it kind of came up between us and we both were like, no, like there's no.
Right. Like hypothetically speaking, we talked about it watching the show. But, and I think like, I mean, depending on what your worth is, maybe, but.
Right. But it's again, you're seeing like the writing on the wall beforehand. Obviously, if you're like, well, I got to make sure I protect what I have, you know? So
right. It's like that whole being more reserved, like just in case this goes south, we're going to be ready. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, back to the original point, like it's seeing it more as like a traditional type marriage. It's like, well, I am committing myself to you and I trust you.
We're investing everything together. So, we're growing as a unit. We're same goals, same place we want to go. So we are working together to make that happen as a unit. Yeah.
So this crazy question, I don't even know how I would ask it. What would you split up for?
Probably, I would think cheating for sure. Like probably, it would be the big one.
I knew that would be his answer. I mean, I get it. I'm a little more.
She's more forgiving than I am.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Yes. So like I've definitely had friends in college I know specifically one friend in college whose parents, her dad cheated on her mom and they're still together. And that happened way before I met her. And like, I never would have guessed it. Like they're still a unit and working. So my feeling would be that I would probably try to work through it if that happened. But I mean, other than that, I'm committed. That's the plan.
Well, I liked hearing you two say that you're committed, and the traditional value is you're making vows to each other, and you're saying, hey, like when things get tough, it could be sickness, it could be death, whatever, we're not going to split no matter what. But it raises the question, like, well, why didn't you put in some stipulations in there when you made those vows? Because if there is some no matter what's, why didn't you state them? And I think just playing off of everything you're saying, there's too many stipulations in everyone's heads when they get married that they don't state during their vows, which has lead to the high divorce rates
Right.
and leads to everyone having high expectations of what their partner should be. And I think that there should be higher patience, higher forgiveness, way higher forgiveness. I don't know how I would forgive cheating.
It's tough.
But a vow is a vow.
Right.
I can't speak because I'm not in the shoes, but
Right.
But
It's
I
hard
truly
to know.
believe if we all just came to the same page as a society and say, hey, like we are flawed human beings and we may mess up, and yeah, like it's totally heartbreaking, but families sticking together would definitely lead to a greater, net positive as a culture. And forgiving one another, although it might be terrible. Like I said, I don't know how I would ever get over it.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would ever do it.
Right.
I almost feel like, though, like there are unwritten rules in just about everything in life.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's one where like your vow is almost specifically it's loyalty. Like that's what it's central. So if you're cheating on someone, like you're breaking that vow. Like that's like the one thing that you focus that on is your loyalty, and you are no longer being loyal to the commitment that you made. So it's kind of like that would be basically my only exception. That one, it's like almost unforgivable because that's the one thing in my head that you're promising is loyalty. And like everything else that goes along with it too, with like the whole sickness and health thing, like obviously nursing someone, but like that's breaking the one thing that keeps people together.
Yeah.
So like that would be my reasoning, and whether that's wrong or right, I don't know.
I get that. Yeah. Thanks for trailing through those, by the way. That's fun. That's super fun. I like that stuff. So let's totally jump into your love story now. And tell me, how you touched on it a little bit, but tell me the first contact you had, which led to the first date and what it was like.
So it all started Thanksgiving Eve, and we were out at the Kutztown pub. And so it's like a big high school reunion for everybody. And I had one of my high school friends come up to me because I had just recently gotten out of a relationship. And he's like, oh, I have some options for you. He's like, you just let me know. And then he's like, Matt Boyer. And I was like, Matt Boyer from Brandywine. That was my exact response. And then I was like, no, like it's too soon. I was like, nope. And then I woke up the next morning to a follow on Instagram from Matt Boyer. And then it was a few weeks, and then he sent me a message on Instagram. Do you want to say what you said?
I said something to the effect of, I saw you. Oh, no, what did I? This is totally random. Would you like to go out on a date with me?
Oh, no. You said, I was too nervous to say anything to you on Thanksgiving Eve, but I think you're real cute. Would you like to grab a drink sometime?
How'd you respond? Do you remember?
So I waited. I didn't respond right away.
So you read it and you left them on red.
Yeah,
for a
I
little
sure
bit?
did.
Oh,
Yep.
Man.
Which actually kind of worked out, and that was his plan. Because
So I was driving to my best man, Adam Kristen. He has a cabin in Potter County, and I had been going there since I was like 10 years old. I was on my way up there to go hunting with him, and I know exactly where I lose service. I know the exact spot that I lose service is a gas station at the intersection of 44, and I'm pretty sure it's 187, I think. It's the highway that takes you from Williamsport. So you lose service right there at that intersection. So I stopped at the gas station knowing that I was going to lose service, and I wasn't going to have it. This was Friday night. I wasn't going to have it Saturday or Sunday until like midday. So I sent the message and was like, idiot. Like, she's not going to go out on a date with you. And then drove right to the cabin and waited the whole weekend until I got home to see if I got a response or not.
So I got the message Friday night, and I didn't respond. And then Saturday morning, I texted one of my friends from high school, and I was like, do you remember Matt Boyer from Brandywine? I was like, what do you remember about him? She's like, I don't really know. She's like, he's not bad looking. She's like, just go for it. So I messaged him back, and I was like, I don't know. I was like, yeah, sure. Like, we could do that. And then I heard nothing all day Saturday. I'm like, wow, he really put it out there. And now there's no response. But then finally Sunday, he messaged me and he was like, great. I don't know, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't make decisions. And then he was like, how about the pub? And so we went Wednesday night. And then that was our first date.
Awesome.
And so, like, I knew who he was. Like, I remember hearing his name in high school. We actually met briefly in middle school. It was like we were each with friends, and like that was my only interaction with him. Otherwise, I knew him as Matt Boyer from Brandywine, but would not have recognized him at all the night of the pub because of the whole beard. I did not know that, so I would not have known who he was had he come talk to me.
Such a nice beard. I didn't even mention it, but it should be in like a GQ commercial or something.
He loves
Such a nice
that.
beard.
He loves hearing
There
that.
is no better compliment I can get than someone complimenting my beard.
Yep.
How did you get from that first date, that Wednesday evening, to proposing? What did you guys do to grow toward one another?
So we went, pretty much our first several dates just included us meeting at the bar. Usually after I was done with work, so he would have dinner before we got there, and I would just not eat and have a few drinks with him because I didn't want to eat in front of him alone. And then that was happening for a while, to the point where my dad was like, Jodi, if you guys like want to hang out, you can like hang out in our basement. And I'm like, I'm 25, Dad. I don't want to hang out in your basement, but thank you. And then our first like big trip was going up to his cabin. It was around Valentine's Day. And we were checking trail cameras. That was the plan, up in the mountains. And there was a lot of snow. And
So we were miles away from the cabin with no cell reception, and there's virtually nobody that lives on the mountain. So that's the
yeah, so we won't give you the whole long story, but long story short, we were getting out to check cameras at this one spot. I heard a hissing noise. I said, what's that noise? He said, it's just the engine hitting the snow. I was like, okay, that's fine.
There
Went out,
was over a foot of snow.
checked cameras, came back. He said, check your tire. I checked it. I was like, yep, we're good. Got in the truck. We start driving. He goes, something's wrong. He's like, I can't steer. And I was like, well, that doesn't seem good. But he's like, we'll get out to where they at least plow the road, mountain road. So we get out there. He gets out. Tire is off the rim. Like, not even close. And so I actually had a little cell service. I tried to call his dad, who I've never talked to in my life. And then we lost connection. He's trying to get the spare tire down. It's not working. And then I was like, well, I said there was a bush down the road a little bit that was decorated for Valentine's Day. So maybe those people live here because normally it's just hunting cabins. So he leaves and I stay with the truck. And then I'm waiting and
What's
waiting.
the time of day? Hold on. What's the time?
This
is there at least daylight?
It was right around lunchtime at this point.
Okay.
And it's freezing cold. It was
It's
like
starting to
25
snow.
degrees out in a blizzard.
And so he leaves, and then it's taking a while. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, he's not coming back. I was like, this is it? I was like, they took him in the house and never see him again.
So just so you can picture it, the house, quote unquote, that I went to check for somebody in was 2 like 8-foot by 12-foot sheds that had been connected with a breezeway. And I don't know how much you know about home ventilation, but if you have propane heat, you need to ventilate your home because if not, you're just breathing in propane fumes. And they had no ventilation, had propane heat. So I was not expecting like a millionaire to walk out of this place and help us. It was almost scary.
Yeah. So I'm contemplating at the truck, do I turn the truck off and try to save fuel? Or there's
Truck has no heat.
Truck has no heat anyways. It didn't really matter.
I was gonna say at least you're in the warm truck.
No.
No, truck has no heat.
And so I'm just deciding what I want to do. I'm like, I don't know really where to walk. I had no idea. But then thankfully I see him come back. And then he's like, the people are going to let us warm up in the house. They're going to give us a phone to call. And so we hung out. Their names were Walt and Sally.
Oh, shout out Walt.
They
Shout
were
out Sally.
ended up being two of the nicest people I've ever
Nicest
met in
people
my entire
ever.
life.
We were there until it was getting to be supper time, and she made us lasagna and salads.
And insisted that we sit. I was like, I'm not really hungry. I gotta wait because somehow I was able to call AAA, and I told her, I was like, listen, like I just kind of want to watch for the truck. I'm really not that hungry. And she was like, no. Like, you're gonna sit down and eat some lasagna.
Sally.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And then finally, AAA came after they came and left and came back again. We got...
Well, so another important part of the story, I believe, is that when I was trying to... One of the very specific things, and this, I personally think, talking about traditional values, you should be able to change a spare tire. Right? Like, that's one thing I pride myself on, that, like, manly man, you know?
Yeah.
So this was our first major date, and I couldn't get the spare tire down. And I'm thinking, like, oh my, she thinks I'm useless. She thinks I am like just a waste of space, and I couldn't get it down for the life of me. And I'm like, so it's basically just a wrench you put in and lower down the spare tire, and I'm slamming it and slamming. I can't get it to go in. And then the guy from AAA comes and he looks at me. He's like, well, didn't you try to get the spare tire down? I'm like, no, I didn't think of that one. So the guy comes over and he's like, yeah, you just got to do this. And he's trying to turn it down. He's like, oh, nothing's happening. So when she came back, I was like, I told you. Something was wrong.
So then eventually we got all patched up, got a new tire, and then we start making our way down the mountain. I just start laughing. I'm like, wow. I was like, this was something else. Because Walt and Sal like, how long have you two been together? I'm like, oh, this is my first time up here. They're like, wow, this is a good first time. And I just thought it was hilarious. And he's like, it's not funny. And
Well, so rewind to when we're going up. When we wake up and there's like 14 inches of snow. So we're going up the mountain, and I had my dad's pickup truck because I wasn't allowed to drive my car to her parents' house, but that's a different story. So I had my dad's pickup truck, and we were going up a no-winter maintenance road, and it's super steep. And as we're going up the hill, so it is road, steep drop-off. Like, that's it. And, like, if we slide down there, like, no one's ever going to find us. There is a red Chevy Astro van that came down the mountain with its bumper in a tree. The only thing that kept it from plunging down into a creek, 60, 70 feet. And my knuckles are white on the steering wheel, and Jodi's just laughing at it. And I'm like scared.
I had no care in the world. I just trusted him. I was like, this is where we're at.
Well, you both survived.
Yeah.
That's all that
Well,
matters.
so after that whole debacle, I was like, she's breaking up with me as soon as we get home.
Thank goodness you didn't.
Right, no, yeah. And then I guess to round it out, we went through COVID together. We lived together unexpectedly for like 10 days because I went to work. They made me get tested.
My parents didn't want me in the house.
Yeah, his parents wouldn't let him in. And it was back when it first started, so testing took a week and a half to come back. I was negative, so we lived together for a little bit, and that helped. And
then we also started full-time living together after like 8 months.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
So then what turned in your head for you to say, I'm proposing to this girl?
I had it in my head pretty early. I realized that I was pretty lucky.
Aww.
When did you start thinking about it to the point where you went ring shopping and planning how you're going to do it?
The planning and the ring shopping was like the week before. It's probably about the week before. Because I guess I was off of work. I don't know what I was off of work for, but I was off of work, and I went into her dad's archery shop. This was the Friday before, and like asked him, hand in marriage, whatever, and he said yes. And then I left from there 7 days before I was planning on proposing, and went to the jewelry store and bought the ring.
Awesome.
7 days before, so it was all kind of just.
But I would say we had like kind of a conversation early on
Right.
about like getting married and like when did we think that would be a good time. So we kind of put like the 2-year mark on it was
Yeah.
kind of like our thought. Like I think by this time,
Yeah.
that would make sense because we're trying to renovate a house too, and I was trying to like prioritize everything. So we had that conversation, and at least together thinking about it. So
How'd the proposal go down?
So
I forget.
we went to the cabin. I had two separate plans. I put two together because that weekend something had happened. She like worked really late on a Friday, like was at work until like 8:00 at night, and I didn't know, like I didn't want to make her go to the cabin, so I was planning on proposing then at a place that we had hiked to earlier on. It's called Dan's Pulpit. It's on the Appalachian Trail, not that far from us. But then when she came home, we had planned on going to the mountains. She was like, no, like we're gonna go. We had this plan.
I didn't know. So I was working really late Friday, and he told me he wanted to go to the cabin and check trail cameras. So I texted him like at work, and I'm like, just go without me. I said, it's fine. I said, if you want to go up, I said, don't worry about it. You don't have to wait for me. He's like, no. He's like, we'll go together. And I was like, okay. He's like, we'll just leave in the morning. So I was like, all right.
But then we ended up going that night anyway.
No, we left in the morning.
You sure?
Yeah, we stopped at the Jolly Charlie for
Oh,
lunch.
that's right. Okay. So then it was raining and cold, and I didn't know if I wanted to do it then. And I was like, I'm going to have to wait till next weekend. So
yeah, because he told me, he's like, we're not getting trail cameras today. We'll wait till tomorrow. And then we get to the cabin. He's like, we need to go check trail cameras now.
Well, because the rain had stopped. So it was like, if we go up now, we can make it happen. So I took her back up to where we had gotten the flat tire and proposed there.
Yep, and he recorded the whole thing.
Oh,
Yep.
Full circle.
And then we wanted to tell Walt and Sally, but Walt has since passed. So that was going to be the exciting part. But he found out earlier when he was up there by someone said that he had passed. So, but... yeah.
Walt's
so I had,
listening in right now.
Yeah.
I'm sure he is.
So I had like suspicion, but then I was going back and forth. And then once we had gotten to the cabin and he's like, we need to go check now. And then I was like, whoa. I was like, this is just about trail cameras.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, fine. So he really threw me at the end there.
Super sweet though. Very smart to do it where the
Yeah,
flat tire incident happened.
Yeah, that was a special spot for us.
It's also, I mean, not that it was that special to her, but I had gone and shot my first deer with my dad like a couple 100 yards from where that all happened. So it was kind of like, cool little spot memories for me. So
Cool.
And now for us.
How soon after that did you start planning for your wedding?
So that was December 18th. And so with the holidays and everything, we kind of like took a back seat. But I think January 2nd, we went to look at a wedding venue already.
Nice.
Because
Wow.
I originally had the plan that I wanted to get married that fall. Because I always wanted a fall wedding.
Yeah.
And I knew I had just gone through the whole thing with my sister. She was a COVID bride, so we did 2 weddings. We did the whole thing. So I knew a venue was going to be hard to come by that soon. And so we started everything hit the ground running. I went wedding dress shopping, and then it's kind of a long story, but I had a week of where I had just like a moment, and I'm like, we're just gonna wait. We're just gonna wait. There's no need to rush everything. And then that's when everything kind of started falling into place.
And also, that's not 100% true. As soon as we got down off the mountain, she was texting people, and she was already giving ideas about the wedding while we were driving down off the mountain.
I've been thinking about my wedding since I was little, so it was just finally like, this is it.
Yeah.
But like official planning and venue visiting.
How did planning together go? Did you have any involvement? If so, how much?
I did my very best to give zero opinion.
Yeah.
I tried as hard as I possibly could, unless it was something that I was like, Jodi, that makes no sense. Like, unless it was something that I really felt like...
Was there anything that made no sense?
I wanted to get married at the church that I was confirmed at, which was vetoed before I even finished the sentence. And then I wanted Genesee Light
That was
at our wedding.
I made good on that.
And that
was
I got.
important at venue visits. Can we bring our own beer? Because no one's going to serve Genesee. But he did make the joke in the beginning. He's like, every time you veto something I say, I'm going to start making a list. And so that was his efforts.
And then after that, I didn't really bear certain things. Like when we did the food tasting, I was like, all right, like I want to have something I want to eat at least, which everything ended up really good anyway. So it wasn't like it was a big decision, but like the food I had some input on.
Right.
And outside of that,
you did the venue visits, you did the food tasting. You participated in picking out your attire.
I did. I guess I picked a tie.
No, I picked that. I found it. I showed you the colors, and I picked the color.
I don't know about that.
You probably
which,
confirmed it. You're like,
I did,
I like it.
yeah.
I like that color.
Which was called a topo tie. Highly
Yeah, this
recommend
is
it. So it was
topo.
topography, like a map shows elevation, and you put coordinates in it, and the coordinates we used were the same spot where we got engaged and had the flat tire.
Do you still have that tie?
I do, yeah.
That's an epic tie.
Yeah,
I
I have
like
it.
that
I mean,
tie.
I don't know when I'm ever going to wear it again,
Yeah.
but I
That's
do
an awesome
have it,
tie.
yeah.
Cool.
And then she also, so I was really close with my grandfather, my dad's dad, and on the day of the wedding, on the tie, this is just a side note, which I definitely would have been okay with this that she told me. She actually had a cutout of he was a janitor at one of the Kutztown elementary schools, and she had the portrait ironed to the inside of my tie.
His photo,
Yeah.
So that was cool.
And I wrote it on a nice card, so I was like, surprise, like, look at the back of your tie. And apparently he didn't see that. I don't know. It was the before wedding escapades, and he didn't see it. But
I
he
did not see it.
eventually saw the picture. He didn't get my note, but he saw the picture.
I did see the picture, yeah.
What was the wedding like?
The wedding was awesome.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah?
This is the best weekend of
Yeah.
our lives ever, hands down. Like, just the best ever.
Share some W's and share some L's.
Oh boy. The W's were I was told specifically because when I decide that I'd like to have a good time, I have a good time. And I was specifically told not to overindulge. Mm-hmm. And I did good at the wedding.
So that was your W.
That was my big W. I think the L on my side was I tried to talk. We had 200 people at the wedding. So I tried to talk to too many people, tried to have too many conversations. And then by the end of the night, I was like, oh man, it's 9:30 already. We had to be out by 10. And I'm like, I haven't talked to a quarter of the people in here.
He also missed the cookies. Like, he didn't know we were having a warm cookie bar.
Yeah, L, big time.
And then the next day, he's like, what? He's like, the cookies? I'm like, how? You knew? Like, I understand, like, guests maybe not knowing they were there, but he knew they were going to be there. He had no idea. He was like, the cookies.
So back
And they
to the
were
other one,
awesome.
I helped pick one of the cookie flavors that I specifically wanted. It was a hot, fresh chocolate chip cookie. And I was looking forward to it. And then at the end of the night, she asked me, she said, do you get any of the cookies? I was like, wait, what cookies?
It's a big
Not
L,
the side-
man.
Yeah.
Big L.
Yeah, the caterer was baking them fresh down in their kitchen and bringing them up. So they were like all night, new cookies.
When we went to clean up the next day, there was one chocolate chip cookie left.
Okay.
And I ate it, and I was like, this is really good. She's like, well, they would have been better warm.
It's probably still good, though, right?
It was really good. But then it was like one of those where like, oh man, she's right. This would have been so much better warm and soft.
But honestly, I think things went really, really well. People always have like the things that went wrong. And I really, looking back on it, I really don't have a lot. We did not do a first look, and I still feel confident in that decision. It was a big build before we're seeing each other. I've never felt like that in my life. I was talking to my dad, and I'm like, this is weird. I was like my heart's fluttering. I was like, I don't know what to do. He's like, don't pass out. I was like, no, I'm not going to. But it was just so much emotion, but it was amazing. The weather held out for us, which is out of our control, but it worked out. Ceremony, things went well.
Minus the whole warning of the night prior.
Yeah. And our flower girl, our niece, fell in the aisle. Like
She just
right.
made an incredible picture.
There's documentation.
it.
Yep, she
I don't
fell,
remember it.
and we were just about ready. And you can see it in our video too. If you watch our video, and it's a shot at me looking at him, and I like whisper to him, and then he like does this face, And then it pans out, and there she is, just laying in the
Right,
aisle
I
as we're
remember
like
it. She was
going.
right up in the front, right?
Right as we're going to kiss, I'm like, she's going. I was like, she's gonna be laying right here. Yep, which was fine. And then his dad grabbed her, and it was okay.
Yeah, she went to run across, and
Yep.
I mean, it ended up being a genius idea, but my dad kind of like tripped her. Like, not like violently,
Yeah.
but just kind of like went to grab her and like she fell over. And
just laid.
Yeah,
like she
and
didn't
didn't make
no
any
emotion,
noise.
nothing, just like laying, just motionless. Yeah, it was humorous. That was funny.
We'll have to pop that up.
Yeah, that's
at this part right now.
Yeah.
We'll pop that up on the screen.
Yes,
you
you
have to
can
have
see
that
it for sure. Like, it's the interaction between us, and then pan, and there she is, just laying down.
yeah, motionless. Just like looking at her little, like, she had her flower thing with her. The little basket. I'm pretty certain.
I don't know.
What's her name again?
Macy.
Macy. That's right.
Yeah. But that was great. I thought pictures went great. We had fun. We had a lot of fun doing our pictures.
We put you two to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the most running I had done in years before that.
Well, right, because we didn't know if we were going to get our sunset photos.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
worked out
then
perfect.
you ran over to us at dinner, and you're like, it's going to happen. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no way.
Well, that was another big one too, where like just kind of brought everything full circle for the night. Was we were talking about this sunset photos, and I don't know if I was talking about it in front of my dad, and his best friend was there, and then when we were walking down after my wife so lovely smashed cake in my face.
Yeah, that went well.
I walked by my dad's best friend, and he made the comment that my grandfather had opened the skies for us, and yeah, that was like.
Yeah. But it went great.
Made it
Beautiful
so
pictures. We're so happy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it got
then
great.
I thought our DJ did a really good job. Like, he came and talked to us, and it was time to get ready to start dancing. And he's like, look, I think we should do the anniversary dance first, because you're sending people back to their seats, and then pick things up from there. But just awesome. It was just awesome. We had a great dance party. Like, that was like one of my favorite moments was right at the end of the night. I finally peeled him away from talking to people. I was like, look, we need to have some time together. And we were dancing and just looking around at everybody, because at that point we were at the 90s pop, and everyone was just singing out loud, and just seeing like all your favorite people around you just singing. It was just like the best moment ever.
One of our vendors had made the comment that, I guess it was our coordinator. She said that at some point throughout the night you need to just like step back and like don't be a part of it, just watch it and just like appreciate that like all of those people are there like celebrating you guys. And we didn't step aside to do it, but it was one of those where like she said something to me. She's like, look how great this is. And like we're there on the dance floor, like all of our friends and family and everything like on the dance floor just acting like nuts. And it's just like you take it all in. It was the perfect cap to like the perfect wedding.
And then we had a solo dance, just the two of us, when everybody went outside at the very end. So that was nice too. And then we had our sparkler send-off.
Like 7 times.
Yeah, we just up and down. Other people joined in. It was funny. It was good. Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
Well, then, so what made it even funnier then, so we had the after party at the hotel afterwards, and there is just this fiasco. The bus, the shuttle is full. We are not even on it yet.
Oh, no.
And her dad is like, calls it Richard mode. He's in full panic. He's like, oh, the bus is full. You got to come with us. We got to give that. He's like freaking out. And I'm like, why is this shuttle full? And then I realized that the whole night, my friends that weren't even going to the after party, that weren't staying at the hotel, I'm like, yeah, just go on the shuttle. Like, it's fine. Like, it'll take you to the hotel. And then like a dozen people that showed up, we were like, you're not even staying? This guy's
They took
fault.
up the seats.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
worked out.
That's
It was
funny,
good.
though.
It did, yeah.
It was just,
Yeah, top to bottom was
everything was great.
the entire
Like,
weekend.
so nitpicky. Like, something that bothers me is I didn't put earrings in my second holes, and it bothers me when I look at pictures. Like,
I would
That's as-
never.
That's like
but that's
something
like
I
as
never
picky as I am, like
Yeah.
trying to like look at things. My bustle kept coming undone, but it was fine.
the
girls kept
table
helping
the
me.
table claws were like, so I mentioned like her favorite color is the absence of color, so like anything super overly neutral, and she was like, the tablecloths were too green, and I was like, they
I
weren't
upset
even
about that
hardly
when they
green.
came. Yeah, but
They
it
were-
worked out.
they were
No
like-
one knew except me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like the low light, when you looked at them, they just looked like exactly what she wanted.
I know in the pictures they looked. Good.
Yeah, it looks perfect. But she's like, they were too green.
Awesome. Did you honeymoon after? I forget.
We
waited.
delayed honeymoon, so we went over July 4th then, so a few months later. We went to the Sandals Resort in Curacao.
Nice. What's that like?
It's brand new, so that was kind of evident a little bit, like some staffing issues and kind of supply issues. But he had never been out of the country, so
Nice.
this was a big win.
Yeah, I'd sworn I wasn't going to
Yep,
either.
this was a big battle between us. He did not want to go out of the country. I said, let's just try it. If you hate it, we don't ever have to do it again. And it took about not even a day at the resort. And he goes, wow. He's like, you were right. He's like, this is amazing. So everything went really well. Traveling home, our flight was delayed out of Curacao. And then we missed our connector flight. And then he was like, this is why I don't travel. We're never doing this again. And so we're just going to let that shake off and we'll be ready to go again. He said numerous times already he's ready to go back.
It was cool.
It was all inclusive.
Yeah, that was the big one for me, because like I was like, if I'm gonna go somewhere, like I want it to be a vacation. So like I didn't plan on getting like drunk every day, but I was like, I'm making good on what we're paying for here. So like all the nice dinners and stuff, you sit down and you're like, oh well, I'm not paying for this. And like as we're doing it, she's explaining it to me like, yeah, you're right, this is cool. I don't have to touch my wallet the entire time we're here. Like if I wanted a drink, all I do is hop out of the pool that I've been in for 4 hours and go get another drink, or like swim up pool bar. So she changed my mind on that one.
What a crazy experience. I feel like we forget sometimes too, like that's like 1% of the world that gets to experience something like that. Yeah. Like such an amazing experience.
Yeah, it was.
I still haven't experienced something like that. I can't wait
you
to.
Have to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can't wait
for
to.
sure.
I'm telling you.
Like he's big outdoors and he said, let's go out west. Let's go in the middle of nowhere. And I said, that sounds great, but I don't want to plan it. I said, I just want to relax. I don't want to think about anything. And so that was our compromise to go my route. And it was nice. Awesome. It was really good.
From honeymoon to right now, how has things changed, if at all?
Nothing. So everyone always asks like how married life is. So that would kind of be like your transition to married life. But we had lived together for like 2.5 years beforehand, 2.5 years. So like we always used to joke that like without the paperwork, we're basically married. We lived together, like we shared finances essentially before that anyway. Like
we shared things, responsibilities and everything. Yeah.
Like it was.
So we just thought people were like the old married couple now. We haven't even been married a year. But like that's kind of the life we live. And it's just, I don't know. Not much has changed. We're still working on renovating a house. That's supposed to be the forever home. So we're working on that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's a big on-taking. But other than that.
That's good.
Yeah, we're kind of just in like the cruise section now.
Yeah.
Like obviously you still kind of have this, but it's not like the none of that anymore. We're kind of just in like the now we're married. There's things we're working on. Like the house is the big goal, but you know.
Cool.
And the cat.
Yeah, we have a cat now. That was a new addition.
What's the cat's name again?
Theo.
Yes.
Theo.
Yeah.
So you know how society is. You know how your marriage is. When do you two think it's important to start taking quote unquote marriage seriously as an individual? Should you start as a 13-year-old thinking about it, 16-year-old, 18-year-old, 22-year-old? We all know that every individual is different.
Sure.
People grow differently. But what can you do at what age to start preparing yourself for marriage, if at all?
So I guess there's two things I think. One is that not like to the extent that I feel like we should be, but both of us are religious. So having that in our life and seeing how it played a role in, at least for me, how serious I thought marriage was as a young age. Like I think starting there, you start pretty young.
Right.
And that kind of segues, that builds your foundation of an understanding of how important marriage is. I also think to that, even if it's not derived from religion, just understanding at a young age, because that's what I think society has lost, is that when you understand how important commitment is when you're younger, you're more likely to develop like respect for people that you're dating, or even just friends. You know what I mean? Like it helps you build a respect for people in your life, and then move into a true commitment with someone you plan on spending the rest of your life with.
Right. I think, we were fortunate enough to have that example at home. So that starts from a young age. I think that ingrains in you, like seeing that example, seeing how your parents are, but not everybody has that. So I think from a young age, you start getting at least a concept and an idea of what marriage is. I think an individual, like themselves, I think it's important, my personal opinion, getting through high school, and then soon after high school, and really start figuring out who you are, and then how that relates to other people and what you want in life, and what your really values and goals are from there. And I think that's when it really starts to ingrain in you looking forward to marriage and how that's going to result in your future marriage, and really figuring out what you want, who you want to be with, and what you want out of that. So I think it's kind of a gradient as you go through life, kind of different steps as you go.
That's good. I like that. Is there anything that we did not talk about that you guys want to share with the world? Any tips, golden nuggets?
It's cliche, but communication I definitely think is key. So I think us talking ahead of time and kind of having a plan for when we thought marriage would be appropriate, and like what we both wanted in marriage, and kind of what both of our ideas were through that, and what we wanted out of that. I think it's very important to talk about family planning ahead of time, and like what you're looking at from both your ends there, and making sure you're on the same page, because that's a big deal, and that's something that's very important and can be controversial if you don't talk about it ahead of time. So I think, do you have anything to go off of that?
No, I would definitely agree, because not everybody wants the same thing. A lot of people have, different outlooks on life. Like, I have friends, and she'll know exactly what I'm talking about, who are content 1000% with spending the rest of their lives alone, because that means they can go fishing whenever they want to. And if that person hears this, they're going to know exactly who they are. But like, there are people that don't want certain things, and like in his case, he's had long-term relationships, and 2 years into them was like, hey, listen, like I don't necessarily want to have to do what you want to do this weekend, which, as selfish as it may be, but then at least you're being honest about what you want in life, and you're not trying to make someone do something they don't want to do. So I think communicating what your goals are in life, and like, you might even, when you do that, you might find that the person you're with is even more supportive of that than you thought they were going to be, So communication is definitely the ticket to having a healthy relationship, I think.
And I guess just one other thing in terms of a wedding, I had, in my field of work, I talk to a lot of people, talk to a lot of elderly people, because I'm in the oncology field. So I had a lot of patients talk to me about how they just had a super intimate wedding, and like just like a few family and friends. And like, I think everybody's entitled to do whatever they want. And then it started making me second guess, like, do I really want this big wedding? Because we had 200 people at our wedding, and it's a lot. But having gone through it and looking back on it, because everyone always says, is it worth the money and everything? But I think our wedding was 1,000% worth it. Like, I wouldn't do it different. No. I think everything we did, I'm like super happy with. Like, honestly, like, we still talk about it. We still watch our wedding video. I love feeling the emotion of all of it all over again. And I would not change a thing. I think it's worth it. I think everything, it was just the best weekend of our lives. We talk about it all the time. So I know everyone has their own thing, and that's fine. But if you're on the fence, I think it was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was awesome.
Awesome. Well, Matt, Jodi, thank you for coming on to the Capturing Your Love show. It was a pleasure having you, and I'm excited to continue to watch you grow in your relationship and see how your family grows in the future.
All right.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank
Great,
you.
thank you for having us.